What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today I'm talking cheap 4.5 million defenders. This is a video that's been requested quite a bit, so I wanted to get out the top 5. It's fair to say this year that a lot of people are looking at big at the back, but there's still definitely a spot for one or two 4.5 million defenders. I'd say in terms of versus previous years, there's maybe not quite so many standout options. So I'm going to go through the top 5 and then at the end go through some which are probably worth a mention, but obviously I've not included in the main video. So let's just jump straight into it. So we'll start off with Balbuena at West Ham, and for a lot of these players that I'm choosing, there are other options at the club for the same price. So for West Ham, it'd be Diop, who a lot of people in the FPL community are looking at, and then there's Fredericks as well. So I'm going to talk through why Balbuena would be my pick. In terms of fixtures, obviously it depends what strategy you're playing. If you're having to play a defender every single week at 4.5 million, you definitely want to check on fixtures. Perhaps you want to rotate, in which case not every single fixture matters, and maybe they're your 5th defender just going to stay on the bench week in, week out. So West Ham's fixtures are okay. They've got Brighton away and Norwich at home in the first 4, but the other games are Man City at home and another away game against Watford. So not the greatest start, but they're pretty good for the kind of short-term fixtures over the start of the season. So I'm quite looking at West Ham as an option for sure. Now, Balbuena did miss quite a few minutes last year. He did have a few injury worries, but he played pretty much every game that he was fit for and was on the bench for 3 games after his injury. But he did play the last 6 games of the season. From what I've seen from West Ham fans, they're pretty convinced that Diop and Balbuena will continue to be the first choice partnership. Now, Reed is back from injury, so maybe that'll put a spanner in the works, but most of them seem pretty convinced it'll be Balbuena and Diop. So the reason I like Balbuena over Diop is because he had 19 shots last year, which was 7 more than Diop, but in 900 less minutes. So in terms of goal threat, yes, there's not necessarily a huge percentage of goals that are scored from corners, but if we're trying to eke out every little bit that we can as FPL managers, then I prefer Balbuena to Diop for that in that respect. But obviously Diop might be a little bit more nailed. Now, the one thing with West Ham is they didn't keep many clean sheets last year. They only got 7, which was only better than Fulham and Huddersfield, who got 5 each. And looking at that as well, for expected goals conceded, they were also the 3rd worst team. Now, they didn't have their first choice centre-back partnership for a little bit of the season, so maybe that didn't help. But you're definitely going to want to see some improvement on that this year. Can they do worse than that? I don't think they will. I think there's only room for improvement. Rice has got another year under his belt. They've got a really good keeper in Fabianski as well. So if they can make maybe a couple of other improvements, I think we could see a few more clean sheets than 7 this year. And obviously, hopefully, you've got the goal threat as well. In terms of rotation, you're kind of looking at Burnley and Bournemouth, and we're going to talk about a Burnley player in a minute. Bournemouth, I'm never too sure about clean sheets, although I think they did keep 1 more than West Ham. But if you want to go to the 4.5 million defender route, then that's the kind of teams you'd be looking at. So yeah, I think West Ham definitely room for improvement. I think we definitely have to hope for that to improve on 2.7 points per match. But as it comes for starting defenders, I like Balbuena for goal threat. If you want to go more nailed on, maybe Diop. Fredericks, I just don't think he's got enough creativity. But again, he could improve this season. But Balbuena for me for sure. So Burnley are definitely a team that in the past we've targeted for cheap options, and unfortunately for the last couple of seasons their defenders have started to go up to 5 million, but Charlie Taylor's in at 4.5 million, and again, I've spoken to a few Burnley fans and they're pretty sure he's nailed unless they bring in someone else. I think Peters has come in, but they're definitely viewing him as more of a backup option rather than a starting player. So Taylor should start the season, and obviously we'll see a bit more of that over pre-season. Now, Burnley don't start the season great. Southampton at home is good, but Arsenal away, Wolves away and Liverpool at home is not ideal. But in terms of value, I think 4.5 million for Taylor could be really good. Burnley did only keep 8 clean sheets last season, so only 1 more than West Ham. But like I've said in other videos, they were in Europe last season, which I think played a part in that. In previous seasons, they got 10 and 12 in the 2 seasons before that. So they do have pedigree for getting clean sheets, Burnley. And if you look at the heat maps for Taylor, he does get up and down that line, although he only created 11 chances in 3,240 minutes, which isn't great. So we'll have to see if he can improve on that. Targett, who's going to be in this video as well for Aston Villa, created 23 in nearly a third of the minutes, so hardly played at all compared to Taylor, but created more than double the chances. So we'll have to see if he can increase his creativity, but I definitely think there's clean sheets for Burnley after their tough start. The one big problem, I suppose, with them is what goalkeeper you're going for. You probably don't want to double up on Burnley. I don't think even at 4.5 million, their assets are that good. So, for example, if Pope becomes the number 1 or Heaton becomes the number 1, and we're sure of that in pre-season, then you might want to target the goalkeeper who can get save points as well, and then suddenly Taylor doesn't look as as good. So maybe you want to go elsewhere. So, like I say, he should be number one. Let's see what he can do next season, and let's see if he starts the season as the first choice left back. But if you want to target Burnley and hope that without Europe they can up their clean sheets, and I definitely think he's the best value option there. So Matt Targett's now moved from Southampton to Villa, and he should be first choice left back. And he didn't really get a massive opportunity under Southampton. Sometimes when Bertrand was injured, he'd come in, or maybe if they switched formation and he got a go on the left further up the field. But most of the time he was left back and back up for Bertrand. But when he came in, I was pretty impressed with his ability to create chances. As I said in the last bit about Taylor, he created 23 chances last year in just 1,185 minutes. So in terms of creativity, he does look a bit better. But obviously that was in a Southampton side. He's now coming into an Aston Villa side that you think would be a little bit worse. But they do have a really good start to the season. So Spurs away is tough, but then it's Bournemouth and Everton at home, Palace away, then West Ham at home, Burnley at home, Norwich away and Brighton at home, the next lot of fixtures. So fixtures-wise, it couldn't get much better for a team that's just come up. Now, I'm always a bit wary about targeting players from newly promoted sides because you're not sure how they're going to do. But I've got a little bit of a fancy for Targett. I just think, when I've watched him eye test wise, so forgetting about the stats for a sec, he looks like a guy who can really cross the ball and deliver a good ball, who's going to create chances. Now we'll have to see whether Wesley up front for Villa is going to be able to convert them if he's the number one. And obviously you'd expect Villa to do worse than they did in the Championship last year. So we'll have to see if they can make the step up. But if you want to just target someone as maybe even a little outside punt, then I like him, especially with the fixtures they've got. And on the list of the players I'm going through in the top 5, only Balbuena had more penalty area touches last year. And if you just think about the reduced amount of minutes Targett had versus the rest, I think that's really good. I think creativity, he might even be one of the best on the list. So we'll have to see how Villa do in the short term. I think it's going to be a tough start to the season with Spurs away, but they've definitely got the fixtures after that. And if Targett can get that creativity up, he's got a good left boot to deliver the ball. I definitely think he gets some attacking returns. Clean sheets, we'll have to wait and see. So Joel Ward might just be the best chance at clean sheets, I think, on this list. Unless Palace make another signing to replace Wan-Bissaka, you'd think that he'll get the right back slot. Again, we'll see that in pre-season, but he should be the guy that replaces Wan-Bissaka. Palace kept 12 clean sheets last year. Only Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Everton and Spurs kept more. And they only kept one less than Spurs. So outside of the top 6, they are one of the better teams. I think Hodgson organises the back four well, and even if they've lost Wan-Bissaka, I still think Ward can step in and do a job. Is he going to be as good? Probably not. But I don't think you'd expect to see their clean sheets go down massively. And I looked at the expected goals conceded like I did for the other teams, and it wasn't really a fluke. They were right up there with the chances they gave away. So pretty decent. 551 minutes last year. Obviously, Wan-Bissaka was around, so he didn't get to play too often. Only had 2 shots, but it did result in 1 goal. And I think he does have a bit of goal threat. So for $4.5 million to get into the Palace backline, I definitely think he's a really good option. Will they be as good without Wan-Bissaka? If they lose Zaha, will they be able to keep the ball and hold it up as well up front? Maybe not, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with transfers. And when you look at fixtures, they got a really nice start. Everton at home, Sheffield United away, and Villa at home in the first 4. So you definitely play them in 1, 2, or maybe even 3 of those matches. And I'd expect them to be right up there for clean sheets again, like I said. The only thing to talk about with Palace is they do have Martin Kelly at $4 million. Now, I'm not quite sure he's going to be a starting centre-back for them next year. But again, in pre-season, if he gets minutes and he looks to be starting the season as the first choice centre-back, then he's obviously going to be a better option. You might as well save that $0.5 million. I don't think Ward's got enough about him to warrant that 0.5 increase. But of course, if Ward's going to start and Kelly's just back up, then Ward's the one to go for. If you want to look at rotation, they rotate quite nicely with West Ham and Brighton. If you're just looking for a solid right back for Palace, who are going to keep clean sheets again this season, you'd imagine, then 4.5 million for clean sheets is probably the best on the list. So as I was saying at the start of the video, the 4.5 million defenders this year are not quite as good as they've been over the last few years. There's definitely less to choose from and less super standout options. So Cathcart's on the list. Played a really good amount of minutes last year, 3,095. Should be still nailed on again this year. 3 goals, which was decent enough, and 2.6 points per match. Obviously, points per match are low for these players, but you're probably not going to play them week in, week out, so it doesn't matter as much as maybe the premium options. And they start the season with Brighton at home, so it couldn't get much better than that. Then they got West Ham at home, Newcastle away, Wolves away, and Sheffield United in kind of the first 7 or 8 fixtures. So opening fixtures are pretty good. I think Watford are a decent team. Although, if you look at expected goals conceded again for them, they were 7th worst team, which isn't great. But I think they've got the team there, Ben Foster in goal, Decore and Capoue in midfield that could definitely do a job. And I think, again, a bit like West Ham, they're definitely a team that could keep more clean sheets next year. There's also, for 4.5 million at Watford, there's Fekonja and Janmaat, who possibly play right back. Fekonja we've seen play further forward as well. We're going to have to wait in pre-season to see who the number 1 is there. Arguably, they're probably a better option than Cathcart, but I think for reliability of definite starts, Cathcart is the one. So there's probably one more player that everyone's thinking I haven't mentioned yet. So let's talk about other players that I need to give a special mention to. So if you've actually made it to the end of the video, I'm sure you're shouting at your screen, Andy, why have you not mentioned Lewis Dunk yet? Surely he's the one to go for. And let's just talk about that for a minute. So if he stays at Brighton, I personally think I'd probably rather have Ryan than him. Yes, he's got a bit of goal for it. But I think Ryan's the better option. Obviously, Duffy's just no good to us now. He's 5 million. It's just way too expensive. Especially to start the season off with. So at Brighton, I'm not so sure. But of course, the reason people are looking at him is because there's rumours, and at the time recording this, nothing's gone through. So hopefully it doesn't change within the next 24 hours. But if Maguire from Leicester goes to Man City or Man United, which has been strong rumours is going to happen, then obviously Leicester are going to need a replacement. And apparently they're lining up a 45 million bid, which just seems like crazy money. I hope that's not true. To land Lewis Dunk. And obviously that would be a good buy for them. He's not going to replace Maguire. I think Maguire is the better defender, but he's still a solid pick to come into that defence. So you'd expect them to still do pretty well clean sheet wise. And I think there's a lot of people that think Leicester are going to do well this year. So outside of the top 6, I think it'd be them, Everton and Crystal Palace that will challenge for the most clean sheets. So to put it bluntly, if he goes to Leicester for 4.5 million, he will absolutely be in my game week 1 side. Unless I go 5 at the back, big premiums, which I doubt I will, then Lewis Dunk will have a spot in my team. Absolutely no doubt about it. I just think at Brighton, he doesn't make the top 5 list, which is why he's in the special mentions. Next up, Max Aarons. There is a lot of love for him at Norwich, and I can see why. He had really good attacking returns last year. Norwich scored a massive amount of goals, and obviously people are hoping that comes into the Premier League. I know I said that fixtures don't necessarily matter for this list, but Norwich's opening set of fixtures are really, really tough. And Targett was only really on the list because his fixtures were good, and I do like the potential he's got from an attacking point of view. So if Max Aarons can take this into the Premier League from the Championship, and if Norwich can go on and score loads of goals too, then he looks like a good option. And once the fixtures turn, he might be one to bring into your team. And he's only 19, so he's got room to improve. But I just don't think versus the other options I mentioned, he beats them. But definitely one to keep an eye out for. And Rob Holding, exactly the same. Once he's back from injury, I think a lot of Arsenal fans would say he should be part of the main 2 centre-back pairing. And for 4.5 million for a top 6 side, again, if he was fit for game week 1, most of us would have him in. Yes, Arsenal didn't do great for clean sheets, but like I've said for West Ham and Watford, I would expect them to improve this year. I just don't think they can do much worse than they did last year. So for 4.5 million, I'd definitely look at him, but he's injured. So definitely these 3 players, special mentions, but I still prefer the top 5 as it stands right now. But as soon as Lewis Dunk's transfer goes through, bam, straight in my team. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. There was a lot of requests for this, like I said at the start. So if you did enjoy it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. That's really appreciated. Let's try and get to 1,000 likes on this video. Of course, if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you know when my next video goes live. There's tons of content still coming before the season starts, and there is a live stream on the way, I absolutely promise you. But leave me a comment below. Which is your 4.5 million defender of choice? Are you going for 1, 2 or 3 in your current squad, and which one are you going for? Let me know in the comments below. We can start a discussion. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.